to start off with a quick introduction on the 𝐸-level app. There's been a lot of questions surrounding the actual app. Some people that have it don't use it because they're not too sure on what the capabilities are. And what I'm actually going to show you now is the newest version of the app. And this is basically what we call the beta app. It's something that has been in the process, as many of you guys know, well over a year. And as many of you know, the amount of time and effort that goes into developing these apps is quite immense. So we want to give a quick shout out to Mike East and his team for doing this and getting this up and running. But the actual app, if you look at it, this is something probably different than what you guys have right now. If you go to the Apple Store and you download the app, it is a little bit different than what you see on your screen right now. This is the actual beta app. And it being the beta app will give us the ability to take all the feedback that from the end user and make it better within a certain time frame. And we've had this beta app out for probably about 8 months. So we've gotten a great amount of feedback on it. One of the things that is great with this webinar format is that tomorrow, everyone that's registered and signed up and on this webinar will get a email that will have the link to download this beta app so that everyone can have it and kind of play around with it and start using it. And it is also going to have a couple of the items that we're going to go over today, including the presentation, in case it goes a little bit quickly for you guys and you want to review it. Everything will be emailed out by tomorrow through the Zoom webinar. So something that if you guys have questions on that, realize that you will get that tomorrow as in an email format. But if you look at the actual app here, there's a lot that's changed and there's a lot of buttons that have been added. The first thing I'm going to go over is in the past, you've had to actually connect your 𝐸-level to your phone via your Bluetooth. Now, the actual app does it automatically. So when you turn on your app, when you turn on your 𝐸-level, as long as your Bluetooth is on, they will automatically connect. There's no need to go in and try to find the layered Bluetooth and actually connect them. They will connect automatically. If for whatever reason, let's say you're updating the app and it loses the connection with your phone or doesn't remember your phone, you can actually press this little bar here that I highlighted in red and just tap that and it will automatically connect it. So one way or the other, a lot easier to connect to your 𝐸-level. The next thing you'll notice is that compass is actually active now. It's a working compass. The reason that's important is when you go into Uvision, that's going to become a key item to help orientate your design with your readings. So we'll know kind of the direction and layout of when you took and how you took those measurements. So it's something very important that we need to get up and running, and it is up and running now. The next item you'll see is those 3 little dots on the top. That's basically our new options menu. And if you click on that, you'll get a little box that opens up and you'll see these couple of new items here. The first one is use zip to email file. And if you turn that on, what will happen is, let's say you are taking a bunch of your measurements. It's a pretty big job site. You're going to take a picture of each of the measurements. You're going to take a comment on each one. That becomes a lot of data. And to try to email a big file like that might take a lot longer than you would like, or maybe your servers can't handle, maybe you have a limit on how much data you can transmit through your server. So this has been added to kind of navigate that and kind of go around that. So if you click this on, what happens is all the data that you collect gets put into one file, it gets compressed, and then you can send it out very easily in a timely manner. The next item here is pretty cool. Nothing that is really necessary, but something, a cool feature that we were able to add on, and that is called the Speak Measurements tool. What that is, and where I find it most useful, is if you are using the range function. Let's say you're around heavy machinery, or there is you don't have an extra hand to kind of look and see what the reading is. You can actually tap that on, and wherever you go and measure a height, the actual phone will speak the measurement to you, so you know exactly what that measurement is without having to look at your unit. Again, might come in handy, might not, but again, it's available to you now through the new 𝐸-level app. And then the last one is the Engineer Units app, and it's more of a benchmark type of app. And I'll kind of maybe have Paddy also give his feedback on this one, because I know his background is a little bit more geared towards that surveying part. But if you click on that one, it almost becomes a benchmark. right? And so when you hit that button and you go to your main screen, what you'll see is the screen to your right, and that's going to be basically 3 figures. You would tap where it says 5, you would hit that little plus button, and you can enter in any height as a benchmark. And then based on that benchmark, your U level will tell you and automatically add that information together. So if you go -1 foot, it would go down to +1 foot. If you go up 1 foot, it would be at 3 feet versus 2. So that benchmark, your measurement gets added on negatively or positively off of that benchmark. Paddy, is there another kind of time where you would find this useful?
Well, this feature primarily is going to interest a lot of architects and engineers. Benchmarks are commonly put on blueprints. The height of foundation technically is the height above sea level. So a lot of engineers tabulate from a benchmark into a format that they can zip files to each other and fully open and understand. It's probably not going to affect a lot of contractors at this stage. It might be one step too far in advance, but personally, I think it's brilliant. And once this is introduced into the Uvision truly, I think it's going to be an amazing feature and a step forward for this device.
Right. Awesome. I couldn't agree more. Moving on here, another new feature that I think is pretty, again, maybe a little bit too far in advance, like Paddy said, but I think it's going to be a great item for contractors to use, is the percent of slope. And what actually, what you're seeing here is that little gray box right below where it says percent of slope. If you tap that on your app, you will get put into this screen. And what you do here is you take the measurement between 2 points, and it will give you the slope between those 2 points. So if you're at a job site and you want to remeasure and just make sure that you have that 2% slope you were aiming for, you would take one height measurement at the back end of your property or the patio, wherever that may be, walk towards the front of that or the side or wherever measurement you're going to take for a actual reading. And between those 2 points, the actual app will calculate the percentage of slope between those 2 points and the distance. So again, something that I know last year we wanted to have available, but again, took a little bit to get going, but now that it is active on this app and available to you. So something to definitely play around with when you guys download it and get it active. If you guys do have the beta app, go ahead and just re-download it because there was an update yesterday. So if you haven't updated it since yesterday, this will be in there as an update for those of you that already have the beta app. Next thing I wanted to go into is the actual reason why it took such a long time to develop is this little button on the top right-hand corner, the little ruler tab. And that actually is using GPS to calculate and measure distance in real time. And so what that looks like, when you press that little ruler button there, you're gonna go to this screen here. And what you'll see is all those yellow dots. What those dots are doing is they're orienting the phone to the ground. So they're basically just reading the layout of the ground. And you'll probably see those dots for about 5 to 10 seconds. Once most of these dots go away, you're ready to start measuring. Okay, so it'll be normal to get this screen here, and then you'll see all the little dots there kind of coming up. Now, at the bottom, you'll see you have two different rulers. The one on the right-hand side that's highlighted right now is basically the one you will use to measure both height and distance. If you need to make a note on a particular measurement or on every single measurement, you would tap the one on the left with the little text bubble. That will allow you to actually leave a little message for yourself or for your designer or whoever needs to read your information that you're going to send to kind of showcase or deviate or highlight a certain feature of that job. So anyway, you can use these two as your main plotting buttons here. So every time you tap that, you will leave both a height measurement and then a point for one of your distance measurements. So that is your distance and height marks right there. The next button that's pretty new is up at the top on the right-hand side. Let's say you are at a job site and you want to take a picture of a manhole cover or a water line or something that you want someone to visually see, whether it's on excavation, it's going back to the job site for the crew. you would actually tap that little camera, and it takes an automatic screenshot of whatever you're looking at through your phone camera. So again, you just tap it, and it takes an instant picture, and it saves it to the file to that point. So again, a very dynamic tool to be able to visually see what you're measuring if you need that to have. Again, this is where it's important. If you're taking screenshots every single point and you have 20, 30 points on a job site, you might want to turn on that zip file tab in the beginning to be able to send all this data in a timely manner, and so it doesn't get clogged up in the server. Now, if I go ahead and tap that little bubble, that ruler with the bubble on the bottom there, what you're going to see is this little dialog box come up, right? So you'll get a point down, and then for that point, you can enter in whatever that note may be. So you would enter that here, and then what you'll get is you'll get this measurement right here, right? This is my starting point. You'll note that every point that is green is a height measurement. Okay, so anytime there's a green measurement like you see here, that is for actual height. If I click another point, and Paddy will show you how you do this, but if I walk from one area to the other and I click my ruler again, that will give me my distance between those 2 points like you see here. And if I zoom in, you'll see that that number is in red. Now, anytime you see a red number between 2 points, that's going to be your distance between those 2 points, and that'll all be documented for you at the end. So you can kind of see there, if I back up here, you see my point at the bottom, my point at the top, and in between those 2 points, you see 27 inches, which is actually my measurement of distance between those 2 points, okay? Now, I'll walk my perimeter, and Paddy will kind of talk about why that's important a little bit later. I'll walk my perimeter, and once I'm done walking my perimeter, I'm going to close out my perimeter using that little button on the left-hand side that's highlighted. It looks almost like a little alien looking at you. Nothing against Phil Carlson. That's not a Phil Carlson dig. Just looks like a little alien. But it does say it will actually close out the perimeter for you and connect that whole unit as one perimeter. Once you do that, the U-Level and Uvision know that that is your working perimeter for that job site. Let's say that's all you needed. You would go on and go ahead and save this. But if you wanted to add spot elevations within that perimeter or within that job, working job site, you would go to this button right here. And that's kind of the little box with the 2 arrows pointing up and down. You press that one time, and that will let the U-Level and Uvision know that every point from now on is going to be a spot elevation within that perimeter. So what you'll do, you'll tap that one time, and then you'll just tap that ruler, and every time you tap that ruler, you'll see that we have green measurements on the inside of that perimeter. Those are all height elevation marks within that perimeter, right? So again, you can take as few as you need for your job site. Maybe you just need 1 point from high to low ground, so you would have 2 elevation points. Maybe you need 0. That's more based on your job site and what you're looking to do. Once you have finished marking everything on your job site, taking all your measurements, you're gonna hit the little picture that looks like it's got a little mountain inside, which is right in the middle here, the plot preview. And once you hit that button, it's going to take you to this screen. And it's gonna give you basically everything that you measured out. You'll see that my perimeter is labeled P1 through P4. And then you'll see all these spot elevations on the inside going from P5 to P12. And those are all the different points that you've measured out. On the bottom of this, you'll see that you have an X, a Y, and a Z. All that information is for Uvision. So that means nothing really to you until you put that into Uvision. If you're not going to use Uvision and you just want to know your lengths and your heights, then you go to that bottom where it says lengths, and it'll tell you the distance between P1 and P2 is 27 inches. The distance between P2 and P3 is 22.5 inches, and so on. You'll also notice that on the little corner there, you have the working compass to orient the user to where these measurements were taken and how they were taken. Okay. If you want to save all this data, here's a new set that I have. You'll see on the right-hand top corner of the screen, there's a little arrow down that is the kind of universal saving icon. If you tap that button there, you're going to get this screen here, and this is something that's new. Now you're able to make folders and save files within those folders, so you can basically make job site files. And so what you'll do is it'll say, you know, enter a new folder. You'll type in the name. I typed in current bids. Let's say you want to do a folder for the bids of 1 week. You would type in the day of the week or what have you, whatever you want that folder to be called. Hit OK, and then that'll set the actual folder in place. You see down at the bottom, it says current bids, and the name for this residence, this sprawling residence of 30 inches, is for Phil Carlson, the Carlson residence, right? So I can have a job site name and a file name. Now, the cool thing is when I go back into my readings, if I need to reference this at any point, you'll see that my folder name is in gray. It says current bids. It has the date, and then it has the name of the actual file that I took, Carlson residence. Above that, you'll see a folder that I took yesterday, and then I just named it test. So everything that you have in there will be saved in the app in this as this kind of readout here on the reading. So something very cool, very easy to do that has been something that everyone's been asking for and is now available. Top right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see it says View Excel. And this is basically what you're gonna get when you email it to yourself as an Excel file. It's emailed as a CSV file. So when you guys open it up in your Excel spreadsheet or in your laptops or what have you, Patty will show you what that looks like. But it's actually going to leak. The file is going to be called a CSV file, which is a mobile Excel file. And you'll see it looks just like any regular Excel file. All my links are right in here. And then I also have a separate file that gives me all my X, Y, and Z coordinates for my Uvision software. And that's basically all the new things, kind of some of the quick walkthroughs on the app. I'm going to actually go ahead and throw it over to Patty, and he's going to start kind of giving you guys a walkthrough on how to take some of these measurements and then how to kind of take these and put them into Uvision. So give us 1 second while we make our transition, and we'll go ahead and do that.
Yep, I hope you can hear me clearly. Welcome, everybody. You're going to see an operation here in Crudity. We're inside. Okay, we're just checking sound here. Can you hear me okay? Okay, sorry. We're going to go to the Crudity's great explanation by Auggie. Watch this at your convenience again, but this is the simplicity of it. What we have here is the device that you are going to receive. This is our U level. Now, I will stress at this point, this U level is very light. It also means that prior to any measurements, as you can see here, I have elongated this 100-foot cable. Reason being, whilst on the job, if I only partially elongate it and then give it a tug because I want to walk to a further perimeter, it will distort your readings because this unit has moved. This unit talks to this pod. So this has to be basically in place throughout the whole session. Now, you will notice there are 2 holes here. If I could just ask you to look at this closer, Auggie. There are 2 holes here. Stakes can be driven in here, paver edge stakes. If you're on someone's lawn, you can tap those in. It will help keep this stable. Now, talking about being on site, things that I look for when I go on a job, I bring cones with me. And this is an official marker where I took my readings. And what I also do, and it's not necessary, but I'll explain, you'll see this in a few minutes, why I use cones. I also use a drone. And the drone, I send up into the air to take an aerial photograph of this plan. I actually will turn this site that we're creating now into a little semi-plat of survey that can be imported. It's no different to Google Earth. This becomes my information that I can send to my foreman and also into the Uvision software. So let's have a quick look at how we do this. I have already, just to shorten the time here, I have already turned the Bluetooth on. The Bluetooth is a step of 2 buttons. 0, power release, then release 0. It's just 1, 2, it's like playing the piano, very delicate. Now, what I do have to do is set it to 0. You will see 0 written on top of the machine. I'm going to hold this down until I hear a beep. And that will tell me, you can see it's at 0, and you will notice that my phone will correlate, we hope, there, 0, 0. Connected to leveler, we're ready to go. So what I do is literally go to the first button on the top to take a measurement. So I'm going to click this button to activate the surface. And as Auggie has mentioned, I get a lot of yellow dots jumping around detecting surface. I see the green circle. Everything is good to go, and I will press my first reading, and off we go. Now, as I move, you can see, if I can trouble you for 1 second, Auggie, you can see on my screen a yellow line denoting that I'm moving the sensors to my second position. And here is my second position. Now imagine you're on the field here. You're out in a sloping terrace. What I'm going to do is lift up and record. And I'm going to press the button, same button every time. Then I'm going to go to another point. And what I'm doing now, we're calling this the P1 readings. The P1 we designate as the perimeter. And I highly recommend, when you are using this device and incorporating it into Uvision, to get the perimeters. They are things that we cannot alter on any job. You cannot alter the property line by law of anybody's property. There's probably a swale there. I just want to record it so I know where my outer parameters of this design lie. Also, Auggie mentioned you can take readings inside your P1 readings, inside and outside, and that is spot heights. We will go through that at a later time, but for the moment, we're just going to talk about, let me get another reading here. You can see, Auggie, if I can show you the yellow line, seeking, there's the horizontal, and I'm going to press the button again. And then, when I'm comfortable, I have got 4 corners. I press this button, and I'm going to send the signal home. And you can see a yellow line shoots back to my starting point over there. Once I am happy with this, I press this mountain range button, and you can see that's where I started. That's at the top of the terrace, 3rd, 4th, and the line that we shot home. Here are the readings that show the height differential between all those points, and we have a slope reading here. And that's basically it. Now what we do is we download it, and then once it's saved as a file, we zip it to my computer, which is waiting at the desk there for me. So give me a second, I will run over there. I'm now going to show you how this arrives on the computer. Okay.
Right. I hope you can you hear me? I'm going to be sharing the screen now.
We can hear you, Patty.
Perfect, perfect. Right, I'm going to share my screen. You can see I'm probably the busiest man in the room here. Look at all these files. Look at all these files. Anyway, so what have we just discussed? We're going to talk for quite a few minutes now on what we just saw in this room, how it transpires into the Uvision program, and then I'm going to show you also a PDF that I created to show how you can share it with your foreman and how you can utilize it and help you sell, which is what it's all about. So let's just look at this. Here is the room that we were just in. And you can see a cone there and a cone here. And we will talk about the drone in a few minutes. But this is technically for me to show where I put the cones. It's a great reference point too. For example, I know we're inside the warehouse here, but UTech facility. But if this was a house, it would be clear to my foreman that could be this area here, could be the patio door. This could be the patio door. So I might put a cone right in the middle of the patio door and establish a rhythm with my crew that my first reading is the center of the patio doors. So what does this actually look like if we assume that we're out on the field? Now, in order to do that, before we get there, I'm going to show we emailed the readings to this laptop. You send it to your email address that is functioning with Uvision and your laptop. And all you're going to do is open up the email that came from the pod, your iPhone or your phone, and it will then arrive and you open it up as an attachment. And once you open it up, it's no different to an Excel sheet. It doesn't matter what we call it. This is what just arrived. Your point 1, your 2, your 3, your 4, your 5, your 6. Now, the good thing about this is you will notice I took my first reading here. And you see when I close it out, I get the same reading, which means we completed a circuit and the device talked perfectly and started and terminated at the same elevation. And these are the inter readings of being on top of the bleacher, dropping down to the wall, back down to the floor. But the good thing about this is, when you hold the pod and you walk around and it's winter, cold, damp, miserable, sometimes your finger might slip and you press a button inadvertently, by mistake. Don't worry about it. It doesn't mean you have to start from basics. Keep going, because when you see this table, when it arrives, you can actually go to any line, click on it, and delete it. So you have a chance to edit your readings even after you've taken them and sent to your laptop. So that's what the readings look like. Now let's look, let's just show you what this actually looks like when it arrives into the program. So let's look at me opening up the Uvision. And what I will do first is show you what it looks like, and then I will literally show you how you bring it in. But I've sent this to myself. Now, what arrived was, let me pull this out the way. What arrived on my screen in plan mode is this. This is all the data that just arrived from those points that I took. P1, 2, 3, 4, back to base. And for those of you that are somewhat familiar with Uvision, there's a great feature under plan detail. If I use 3D photo, I can click on these points here and it shows you the point that you're looking at. And you can move the camera around. So great features in this whole program of Uvision, but coupled now with the U level, it's going to be really powerful. Now,
Paddy, if I can interrupt you for one second, just so everyone understands, because I know we've had some questions on this as well. All those pictures that Paddy just clicked on, great feature in Uvision, but that's also the pictures that he took with that snapshot camera in the actual app. So the actual app, when you snap those pictures, will send us all this data. So you have all of that data at your disposal. And you saw a great way to use it is what Patty's doing here, because this is another great, kind of a nice setup if you have a foreman that you want to showcase and show where these points actually are on the job site. Patty's going to kind of go into how that could relate on the back end of a job and utilize all this together.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for, yeah, jump in at any time with any questions there. Now, what I'm going to show you is in plan detail, it comes in like this, but it literally comes in with these green circles that highlight our stations. In reality, once you hit perspective, there are the 4 points that I took. But in plan, they don't really stand out. What I do is I go to my building tab, select a column, drag it down, and it denotes the corners, and I change the colors of the pillars. So P1, 2, 3, and 4. And just to refresh you, that is where I started. That is where I went to the bleacher. That's where I came down to the wall. And that was my 4th point before I sent the beam back to base. So there is my circuit. Looking at it in walkthrough, the contours disappear and you will see the gentle slope from the side of how these pillars correlate. And these are the points that I took. I will show that to you clearer in a different mode here. If I go to walkthrough, you can see now, without the bleacher photograph, the black pillar was my first, the white was my bleacher, the red was the wall, the blue is back on the floor, and then back to black. They are the 4 circuits. And that's the points that I recorded. And then what I do is I go to work on it, and it will be in this file here. Once I get these points in, you can see now what I can do with these points. I'm going to create a little house on top of the hill. I'm going to terrace it, and then I am going to put a little bathing pool at the end.
Yep.
But there are my 4 points, and I have used the terrain tool. I've created slopes and grading and a walk up the hill to the little house with a pool. 4 points, and it gives me a bearing of what I can do on Blueprint. Oh, are there any questions, Brian, before I move into importing?
Brian, you're on mute.
Actually, we do, Patty. Thank you very much. We have a question from Nate. Is the U-level process compatible with the full version of the original software? Also, not just the scaled down branded Unilock version.
On the Uvision side, so there are 2 softwares, the Uvision one and then a Real Landscape Pro software. The actual U-level and compatibility for right now is designated to the U-level and Uvision side of things. And I'm not sure if that's going to be something that'll be moved over to their other softwares, but because it is something that's more of a item push on the Unilock side in conjunction with Smart Level. Right now, for the moment being, it is only or solely available for the Uvision side of the software. Again, I'm not sure what that looks like for the future if you have the Real Landscape Pro software, but it is something that for right now, it is more on the Uvision side than on the Real Landscape Pro side. And was there a second part to that question, Brian?
No.
Okay.
Well done, Augie. Great answer.
And then also, the one thing I will say that this showcases, and I really like the way Patty kind of shows this, is, for those of you that have tried to go into Uvision and basically start your elevations from scratch, this is something that I think is going to be a little bit of a game changer just from a time standpoint, let alone the ability to be able to, do some of these other kind of more advanced features that Patty has started kind of working with. Patty, kind of just to ask you a question as far as the time frame of what, from the time you import this to the time where you can get something like this, again, obviously small scale, but we have our terrain, we have our couple of walls kind of in there. What would that time frame, what does that look like for you?
Well, for me, and don't take this the wrong way, I'm pretty good at this program. So
I would hope so. I trained you.
Yes. So,
That's a joke.
trained by the best. Yeah, you saw me start this off. I turned on the U level. I took recordings at every station.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to allow 2 minutes per station, and that's plenty generous. So I'm thinking I can do a circuit like this in less than 10 minutes. And I think I can do that at a house, on a driveway, in a backyard. If I go to the corners, I think I can pull this out in 10 minutes. So within 10 minutes, I have the data in email format sent back to my laptop.
Great.
So it's waiting at the office or in the truck if I even want to work satellite.
Yeah, and I think the more you use it, the more, I think at the beginning when we both started using it, we were a little clumsy with it. So I think the more that we've used it, especially more on your end, because you've been with it, you've been championing this for the last probably about 2 to 3 months for us. But I think the more you get kind of in tune with the way that the U-Level app works and how that information is imported, which we'll go into in 1 minute here, I think it's going to get easier to do. And I do think that some of those jobs that would take an hour or two to import terrains and get it to where you want, you can cut that in half, right off the bat. So I think it's a great thing to look at if you don't have the Uvision software. But remember that the U-Level on its own is still a dynamic tool. So even just to have this information at your fingertips and being able to record it and have it live without Uvision is still a great upside to a lot of these job sites. One quick question that I do see that popped up here.
Yeah,
is,
did you have that, Augie? Okay.
Yeah, great question from Kurt. It says, are the contour lines generated by the program automatically upon import? And then can the contour lines be adjusted? So really quick answer is yes. The great part about it, anytime, and Patty will go into it in a second here, but anytime you import that information from the U-Level, those Excel spreadsheets that we showed you, they automatically get imported as contour lines. And then you can adjust those contour lines. Every single one can be adjusted, just like you would a regular import. You can go to edit points, and then that makes it a live contour line, and you can adjust it, move it, change it, and change your readings on the end side of things. So yeah, great question, Kurt. All very easily imported automatically. That's one of the updates that Uvision came out with for 2020, was the ability to take all this data from the U-Level and import it seamlessly. Because before that, Patty, if you agree, it'd probably be double or triple the time to import all that data and get it to where you wanted it to work it.
Oh, I mean, to be quite honest, the advancements in the last 3 months alone have been worth the wait. And credit to Mike for, picking up the phone every time we came up with a thought or some great questions like we're getting tonight.
Yeah, and speaking of great questions, we do have a few more. I never thought I'd have to crowbar my way into this. You guys are tough, worse than I am here. So let me get on with one of the questions. Daniel asked, are there any problems with accuracy? And I think he's looking for, how tight can we actually make this? What is that margin for error, plus or minus?
Well, when you import it, you can actually tell the software the accuracy that you want to work to. And accuracy in elevation terms is height. So I can knock this down to give me a contour every 3 inches. Actually, which is what this one probably is. It was set at 3-inch intervals. Now, the problem being, the more accurate you want it, the more contours you're going to get. And as you can see, it kind of looks spaghetti-ish on first import. If I go to the plan mode, until I put my columns in to give me my bearing, you're looking at all these lines here and how they correlate. And they do correlate. But if you want to be very accurate, you're going to have more lines. And I would honestly say you could be just, it doesn't affect anything mathematically, but if you wanted to change your intervals to 12 inches, 18 inches, to 24 inches, you're going to get less contours, less data on the screen, but it doesn't change the fact that you started at 0 and you went up to 32 inches.
And that's what Daniel's follow-up question was. I think he did ask, for example, do the lengths come in very accurate, or would you still need to check yourself and measure those distance? And I think you kind of addressed that with
Yeah,
that
one
answer.
of the things too, Brian, on the lengths. So Patty talked about the height. When we were kind of doing the initial distance measuring, we did test the distance and how accurate that was. And, we took a 25-foot span, and we did measurements every, we did one at 5 feet, 10 feet, 15, 20, and 25. And in that distance, when we got all the way to that 25-foot mark, we had a 1/4 inch deviation on that length, which over 25-foot length is very acceptable. That's something that is within that tolerance of that span of distance. So, when we were at that 5 foot, 10 foot, 12, 13, whatever that, lower mark was, we were right almost dead on, if not, tenths of an inch off. So from a distance standpoint, we worked very hard to try to get it as accurate as possible. Obviously, depending on your signal and where you're at on your site, as long as you have great visibility and the signal's strong, it does use GPS triangulation to come up with all that. So, there is a little factors that are out of our control, but from a distance standpoint, we worked really hard to make sure it was pretty accurate.
And staying in that theme with measurements, we have another question. Would you say we could use the U level to measure dimensions around a house, even if we don't want to get those grades? So I think they're looking for just mass, crude type dimensions.
Oh yeah, it is a measuring tool.
Right.
Point A to point B is going to give you a distance. Whether you're interested in the height is immaterial.
Right.
The system still works. But just briefly touching on Augie's point there, accuracy on this program with this device is probably the most accurate device in the history of surveying, because when you use transits of old theodolites, you had to have a correction factor for the curvature of the Earth every 100 feet. This works on a hydraulic system that was performed with water 4,000 years ago. Level is level, and gravity provides that. And this is level and doesn't need any correction over the distance. So it is a very accurate format for surveying.
I'll go with what he said. Hey, Patty, just before, we actually are doing great on time. We got about 15 minutes left. Do you want to quickly go and show everyone, how to take that information and just import it in so they can see how easy that process is? And then you can show them when we talk about slice, if they have a big or small job site, how that varies, and you can get more or less contour lines because of that slice.
Yeah, and what I will do after we do that, I'm going to show you also how I use Google Earth and correlate it to these imports. So let's just do that. I'm going to go to my startup program here. And I will go to File, Import. Now you will notice under Import, there are many formats, different sets of files, types of files, but you are now in terrain land under CSV. Click on that option, hit Next, and you have to go and find the file that you're looking at, and it's named differently, obviously, but let's just look at this one, Unilock Zoom coordinates. So that's the one we're looking at, and I'm going to open it. And these are the readings that I will be taking into the software. They're my points. X, Y, Z are the heights. Hit next. And it's telling me right here with slice distance that I am asking for the software and the U level to talk to each other every 3 inches. Tell me when it changes. That's basically what it is. Hit next, finish.
Now, the guys, while we're waiting this for load, before this whole process was streamlined with the 2020 update on Uvision, everything that Paddy just showed you was done manually by the user and took about, if you knew what you were doing, maybe 5 to 7 minutes. If you weren't too sure on how to import this, and it could take almost up to 20 minutes to import all that data in. So the fact that Paddy just showed you guys how to do that in 25 seconds is a testament to all the work that was done on the off season. And again, I know we waited a long time for this software to kind of come on board with the U level, but I think, like Paddy mentioned earlier, I think it was well worth the wait because if you guys don't use Uvision and U level together, I would definitely recommend you do, because it's a dynamic pairing, kind of like Brian and Paddy together in this seminar.
Oh, it gets even better.
Fantastic.
Before you get any further, gentlemen, I do have another question from Daniel. Daniel asked, I've read that bubbles can become a problem with water levels. Have you experienced any bubbles in this unit?
So the one thing to answer that question, yes, I've seen a couple of units that have bubbles. Now, when it does become a problem, Daniel, is if they become multiples, right? So if you have a big bubble that starts to turn into 2 or 3, that's where you might see some deviation in that, or fluctuation in that height measurement. Now, the great thing with the U level is you can actually, just like a brake line, and I'm kind of dating myself because I know Jake or Phil probably don't know how to change brake lines, but just like you would bleed out a brake line, you can bleed out the U level and basically get rid of those air bubbles. That little square package that says U, that has the big U on the U level that Paddy showed at the beginning, is actually an oil reservoir. So you can actually drain it out, get rid of that bubble, and fill that oil back in, and then reconnect the unit to the adapter. So it is something that if you do see an air bubble in there, kind of just look for it, because if it turns into multiples, then you will see a deviation in that height and you will have to bleed it out and get that air bubble out. But for the most part, I think it's been a couple of units that have gotten that issue. But yeah, any water bubble could possibly get some sort of entrained air in it.
Yeah, it's a good point, because this system was produced to be self-repairable, and normally you'd have to send equipment in. Surveying equipment is very delicate. So if there is irregularities, there are videos how you can drain exactly as Auggie says. So it is meant to be something that can be mastered on site if there's an error. But jumping back in, we imported this file in now. If you want me to repeat this sequence, or I assume we know how to do it? It's file, import, CSV, sorry. And then look for the
do it really
file.
quickly again, Paige, just so that we can see that process one more time, since it's pretty quick.
Okay, all you do, when I got the email, I saved the file onto my desktop. The attachment is on my desktop. So once I open up Uvision, I go to File, Import, and here are my options. In Terrain, CSV. It's not going to be in here, it's here. It correlates to CSV. Click on this, follow the steps, and go find the file that I have on the desktop. Hit open. There are all the readings, and the Z is what I'm looking at. I'm importing it with 3-inch slices. That's a lot of contours, but we want to really explain this clearly. So once I finish this off, it arrives on my screen, and there it is now. As we say, spaghetti. But that is what we're dealing with, the Earth's contours. Now, you can see in this stage raw format, if I hit perspective, I just see the lines. And that can be confusing to some. And if I look through it and walk through, I'm just going to see the green fields of Ireland. You might see someone tell me my supper's ready. But you can see clearly that there is a slope. There is a slope on this ground. And that's what we created. So what I'm going to do, in order to track my position, I know I started at P1. As I said, I went to my building tab, go to the column, and introduce a column onto P1. Now the problem is they're white columns. So I go to perspective and it shows my starting reading. Can you follow the sequence in this? Go back to plan and I will throw in another column at P2. I will throw in another column at P3, P4, and now I've got my outer perimeter of the lot that we're working at. Look at it in perspective, and there you have it. Now, what I did from there, and we won't need to go into this today, if I go into landscape mode, I can adjust the elevations here. I put in the little house, I put in a swimming pool, and I put in a sidewalk to lead me up there. And that was my mission at this house. Maybe a little hot tub with a patio and a changing room. And they are the elevations that I took, and this is how I correlate it. Now that shows me importing it and how I use it. Now, what I'm going to do is just close out of this for a second, and I'm going to go to this PDF. And this PDF, I'm just going to flick through the buttons and find a couple of pictures. Now, there is the coil. Unravel it so you don't tug on it. There is your scanning. I won't go through all that because Augie's done it. I will mention briefly the pedestal. It comes with a pedestal. If you attach the pedestal to the pod, you have to keep it the whole measurement. You can't change the height of the stalk. It has to remain constant, the whole readings for that site. I generally don't use it. Preference. Correlating, but I want to show you something. Let's go back. Here is my house, and this is me putting cones out to start a reading. It was freezing winter. I sent the drone up, but can you see P1, P2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, back to 10, P1. That's what I give my foreman. And these are the readings that they get. And there is the readings that I exported to the to my email. I might have pressed a button. I can delete that line, not a problem. And that's what came to my computer. I then tabulated the area for the driveway, and I imported a picture of Google Earth, and I married the two together. You can see there's my house, there's the contour readings, and I just put a driveway on a Google Earth. It actually, as you can see, I can measure the design. And also, with the same technique, you can see, sorry, I keep thinking I'm in NuVision, you can see the sloping on the terrain, and then if I put in a patio, it will tell me the height of the wall. Square footage, linear footage, and this is all done, and I'm gonna say, you're gonna do designs in less than 45 minutes. That's from exporting it, that's from being on site, sending it to your computers and working from there. So I think it's an amazing, amazing concept. It's finally here. There's my house with a driveway, same contours, and you can apply it to anything. Once you put the contours in and you ask your homeowner for their plat of survey, once you import the survey onto the contours, you can see it warps the survey to meet the contour readings. The contour readings take over and the plat of survey melts to those lines.
And I know we are running out of time. So Patty, I want to get this last question in from David. David asks, if what you've shown is the perimeter, how do you accurately locate the house, other structures, and trees within the perimeter?
Okay, just look at this picture on the screen. David, I believe, yes?
Yep.
Imagine that was my first reading, David. I would place a pillar there, pillar here, pillar here. I would establish my driveway. Now I ask for the survey. I import the survey and I marry the pillar to the corner of the garage door openings. And that locates the angle of the wall to the pillar readings, and I can then go to my house building tab in Uvision and I can scribe out the foundation of the house. Now I can start to put in a sidewalk. I can start to fill in the driveway. I can now position trees and patios exactly as shown on the survey. Excuse me, or intended to be shown on the survey, on the design. So once you get your 4 pillars in to show you where your readings are and your contours, you can marry, correlate any Google Earth picture, any drone photograph, any survey, Plata survey, load it into the program and make the 2 corners meet. And that you're set. I hope that makes sense to you, David.
All right, guys. I do think we're right around that time. It's 6:30 sharp. So I have a couple of quick announcements, and then I'll let Brian close it out since he's getting paid handsomely to be here. Couple of things that have been 2 calls that I've been getting repeatedly the last few months. The first one is around the battery life. The battery seems to be draining on some of these units at a really fast rate. And one of the things that, in talking to Mike East at Smart Level, there will be a patch probably updated and sent out by, I think he said next week, that is going to rectify that problem. What's going on is on the actual U-level unit, when you guys press the power button to turn off the unit, there is a software item in the background that is continuously running that does not get turned off for some reason. And so they've identified what that is, and that is the component that is draining the battery because it literally just keeps going even though the unit is off. So in the update in about a week, week and a half, that will be a battery patch, just like iPhone has done in the past, and that will fix that issue so that that little quirk isn't draining the battery anymore,